Part 6. Dallas, Kane, and Lambert made their way down a narrow corridor. They now wore boots, jackets, and gloves, in addition to their insulated work pants. They carried laser pistols, miniature versions of the welder currently being used by Parker and Brett. They stopped outside a massive door, well marked with warning symbols and words. Main airlock, authorized personnel only. Dallas always found the admonition amusingly redundant, since there could be no such thing as an unauthorized person aboard the ship, and anyone authorized to be aboard was authorized to use the airlock. Kane touched a switch. A protective shield popped back, revealed 3 buttons hidden beneath. He depressed them in proper sequence. There was a whine, and the door moved out of their way. They entered. 7 vacuum suits were arranged on the walls. They were bulky, awkward, and absolutely necessary for this hike, if Ash's evaluation of the outside conditions were even half accurate. They helped one another into the life-supporting artificial skins, checked out each other's suit functions. Then it was time to don helmets. This was done with proper solemnity and care, everyone taking turns making certain his neighbour's seal was tight. Dallas checked out Kane's helmet, Kane checked Lambert, and she performed the same service for the captain. They executed this tripartite play with utmost seriousness, the spacefarer's equivalent of 3 apes grooming one another. Automatic regulators were engaged. Soon, all 3 were breathing the slightly stale but healthy air from their respective tanks. Dallas used a gloved hand, activated the helmet's internal communicator. "I'm sending. Do you hear me?" "Receiving," announced Kane, pausing to boost the power on his own pickup. "You read me back?" Dallas nodded, turned to the still sullen Lambert. "Receiving," she said, making no effort to try to hide her displeasure. She still wasn't happy about being chosen for the expedition. "Come on, Lambert," Dallas said, trying to cheer her. "I chose you for your abilities, not your sunny disposition." "Thanks for the flattery," she replied dryly. "And thanks for nothing. Why couldn't you have taken Ash or Parker? They'd probably have loved the chance to go." "Ash has to remain on board, you know that. Parker has work to do back in the engine room and couldn't navigate his way out of a paper bag without instruments. I don't care if you curse me every meter of the way. Just make sure we find the source of that damned signal." "Yeah, wonderful." "All right, we're set then. Keep away from the weapons unless I say otherwise." "You're expecting friendly company?" Kane looked dubious. "Hope for the best rather than the worst." He thumbed the communicator's exterior suit controls, opened another channel. "Ash, are you there?" It was Ripley who responded. "He's on his way down to the science blister. Give him a couple of minutes." "Check." He turned to Kane. "Close in a hatch." The exec hit the necessary controls, and the door slid shut behind them. "Now, open the outer." Kane repeated the procedure that had admitted them to the lock. After the last button had been depressed, he stood back with the others and waited. Unconsciously, Lambert pressed her suit back against the inner lock door, an instinctive reaction to the approaching unknown. The outer hatch slid aside. Clouds of dust and steam drifted before the 3 humans. The pre-dawn light was the color of burned orange. It wasn't the familiar, comforting yellow of Sol, but Dallas had hopes it might improve as the sun continued to rise. It gave them enough light to see by, though there was little enough to see in that dense, particle-thick air. They stepped out onto the lift platform that ran between support struts. Kane touched another switch. The platform descended, sensors located on its underside telling it where the ground was. It computed distance, halted as its base kissed the highest point of the dark stone. With Dallas leading, more from habit than formal procedure, they made their careful way onto the surface itself. The lava was hard and unyielding under their suit boots. Gale force winds buffeted them as they surveyed the wind-swept landscape. At the moment, they could see nothing save what ran off beneath their boots into the orange and brown mist. What an unrelievedly depressing place, Lambert thought. Not necessarily frightening, though the inability to see very far was disconcerting enough. It reminded her of a night dive in shark-infested waters. You could never tell what might suddenly come at you out of the darkness. Maybe she was rendering a harsh decision too soon, but she didn't think so. In all that shrouded land, there was not a single warm colour. Not a blue, not a green. Only a steady seepage of yellow, sad orange, tired browns and greys. Nothing to warm the mind's eye, which in turn might ease one's thoughts. The atmosphere was the colour of a failed chemistry experiment, the ground of compact ship excreta. She pitied anything that might have lived here. Despite lack of evidence either way, she had a gut feeling that nothing lived on this world now. Perhaps Kane was right. Perhaps this was some unknown creature's concept of paradise. If that proved to be the case, she didn't think she cared for such a creature's company. Which way? What? The fog and clouds had misted over her thoughts. She shook them away. Which way, Lambert? Dallas was staring at her. I'm okay. Too much thinking. In her mind, she was visualizing her station on board the Nostromo. That seat and its navigation instrumentation, so confining and stifling under normal conditions, now seemed like a small slice of heaven. She checked a line on a screen of a small device attached to her belt. Over here, that way. She pointed. You lead. Dallas stepped in behind her. Followed by the captain and Kane, she started off into the storm. As soon as they left the protective bulk of the Nostromo, the storm was able to surround them on all sides. She stopped, disgusted, and operated suit instrumentation. Now I can't see a goddamn thing. Ash's voice sounded unexpectedly in her helmet. Turn on the finder. It's tuned to the distress transmission. Let it lead you and don't mess with it. I've already set it myself. It's on and tuned. She shot back. You don't think I know my own job? No offense, the science officer responded. She grunted, stalked off into the mists. Dallas spoke towards his own helmet pickup. Finder's working okay. You sure you're receiving us clear, Ash? Within the science blister on the lower skin of the ship, Ash switched his gaze from the dust-obscured figures moving slowly away to the brightly lit console in front of him. 3 stylized images stood out sharp and clear on the screen. He touched a control, and there was a slight whine as the science chair slid a notch on its rails, aligning him precisely with the glowing screen. See you right now on the bubble. Read you clear and loud. Good imaging on my board here. I don't think I'll lose you. Mist isn't thick enough, and there doesn't seem to be as much interference down here on the surface. Distress signal is on a different frequency, so there's no danger of overlap. Sounds good. Dallas's voice sounded unnatural over the blister speaker. We're all receiving you clearly. Let's make sure we keep the channel open. We don't want to get lost out here, not in this stuff. Check. I'll be monitoring your every step. Won't bother you unless something comes up. Check here. Dallas out. He left the ship channel open, noticed Lambert watching him from behind her suit's dome. We're wasting suit time. Let's move. She turned wordlessly, her attention going back to the finder, and started off again in the dancing muck. The slightly lower gravity eliminated the burden of suits and tanks, though all still wondered at the composition of a world so small that could generate this much pull. Mentally, Dallas reserved time for a geological check in depth. Maybe that was Parker's influence, but the possibility of this world holding large deposits of valuable heavy metals couldn't be ignored. The company would of course claim any such discovery, since it was being made with company equipment and on company time. But it could mean some generous bonuses. Their unintentional stop here might turn out to be profitable after all. Wind drove at them, hammering them with dirt and dust, a solid rain. Can't see more than 3 meters in any direction, Lambert muttered. Quit griping. That was Kane. I like griping. Come on, quit acting like a couple of kids. This isn't the place for it. Wonderful little place, though. Lambert wasn't intimidated. Totally unspoiled by man or nature. Great place to be. If you're a rock. I said that's enough. She went quiet at that, but continued to complain under her breath. Dallas could order her to stop talking, but he couldn't keep her from grumbling. Abruptly, her eyes brought information that momentarily took her thoughts away from the steady condemnation of this place. Something had disappeared from the screen of the finder. What's wrong? Dallas asked. Hang on. She made a slight adjustment to the device, made difficult because of the bulky gloves. The line that had vanished from the face of the finder reappeared. Lost it. I've got it again. Any problems? A distant voice sounded in their helmets. Ash was voicing concern. Nothing major, Dallas informed him. He turned a slow circle, trying to locate something solid within the storm. Still a lot of dust and wind, starting to get some fade on the finder beam. We lost the transmission for a second. It's still strong back here. Ash checked his own readouts. I don't think it's the storm. You might be entering some hilly terrain. That could block out the signal. Watch yourselves. If you lose it and can't regain, switch the finder to trace my channel back towards the ship until you can pick up the transmission again. Then I'll try to direct you from here. We'll keep it in mind, but so far that's not necessary. We'll let you know if we run into that much trouble. Check. Ash out. It was quiet again. They moved without talking through the dust-laden orange limbo. After a while, Lambert stopped. Lose it again? Kane asked. Nope. A change of direction. She gestured off to their left. That way now. They continued on the new course, Lambert keeping all her attention on the finder's screen, Dallas and Kane keeping theirs on Lambert. Around them, the storm grew momentarily wilder. Dust particles made insistent ticking noises as the wind drove them against the faceplates of their helmets, forming speech patterns within their brains. Tick, tick, let us in. Flick, pock, let us in. Let us in. Dallas shook himself. The silence, the cloud-enveloped desolation, the orange haze, all were beginning to get to him. "It's close," Lambert said. Suit monitors simultaneously informed the distant Ash of their suddenly increased pulse rate. "Very close." They continued on. Something loomed ahead, high above them. Dallas's breath came in short gasps now, from excitement as much as exertion. Disappointment. It was only a large rock formation, twisted and grotesque. Ash's guess about the possibility of them entering higher country was proven correct. They took temporary shelter beneath the stone monolith. At the same time, the line vanished from Lambert's finder. "Lost it again," she told them. "Did we pass it?" Kane studied the rocks, tried to see over them, and could not. "Not unless it's underground." Dallas leaned against the rock wall. "Might be behind this stuff." He tapped the stone with a suited fist. "Or it might just be a fade due to the storm. Let's take a break and see." They waited there, resting with their backs to the scoured wall. Dust and mist howled around them. "Now we're really blind," said Kane. "Should be dawn soon." Dallas adjusted his pickup. "Ash, if you hear me, how long until daylight?" The science officer's voice was faint, distorted with static. "Sun's coming up in about 10 minutes. We should be able to see something then." "Or the other way around," Lambert put in. She didn't try to hide her lack of enthusiasm. She was damn tired, and they had yet to reach the source of the signal. Nor was it physical weakness. The desolation and eerie coloring were tiring her mind. She longed for the clean, bright familiarity of her console. The increasing brightness didn't help. Instead of raising their spirits, the rising sun chilled them by turning the air from orange to blood. Maybe it would be less intimidating when the feeble star was completely up. Ripley wiped a hand across her brow, let out a tired breath. She closed the last wall panel she'd been working behind after making certain the new components were functioning properly, put her tools back in the satchel's compartments. "You ought to be able to handle the rest. I've finished the delicate stuff." "Don't worry, we'll manage," Parker assured her, keeping his tone carefully neutral. He didn't look in her direction, continued to concentrate on his own job. He was still upset over the chance that he and Brett might be left out of whatever find the expedition might make. She started for the nearest up companionway. "If you run into trouble and need help, I'll be on the bridge." "Right," said Brett softly. Parker watched her go now, saw her lithe form disappear upward. "Bitch." Ash touched a control. A trio of moving shapes became sharp and regular, losing their fuzzy halos as the enhancer did its job. He checked his other monitors. The 3 suit signals continued to come in strong. "How's it going?" A voice wanted to know over the intercom. Quickly, he shut off the screen, hid his response. "All right so far." "Where are they?" Ripley asked. "Getting close to the source. They've moved into some rocky terrain, and the signal keeps fading on them. But they're so close, I don't see how they can miss it. We ought to hear from them pretty soon. Speaking of that signal, haven't we got anything fresh on it by this time? Not yet. Have you tried putting the transmission through ECIU for detailed analysis? She sounded a touch impatient. Look, I want to know the details as badly as you do, but Mother hasn't identified it yet, so what's the point in my fooling with it? Mind if I give it a shot? Be my guest, he told her. Can't do any harm, and it's something to do. Just let me know the instant you hit on anything, if you happen to get lucky. Yeah, if I happen to get lucky. She switched off. She settled a little deeper into her chair on the bridge. It felt oddly spacious now, what with the rest of the bridge crew outside and Ash down in his blister. In fact, it was the first time she could recall being alone on the bridge. It felt strange and not altogether comfortable. Well, if she was going to take the trouble to work her way through ECIU analysis, she ought to get started. A touch of a switch filled the bridge with that tormented alien wail. She hurriedly turned down the volume. It was disquieting enough to listen to it when subdued. She could easily conceive of it being a voice, as Lambert had suggested. That was a concept more fanciful than scientific, however. Get a grip of yourself, woman. See what the machine has to say and leave your emotional reactions out of it. Aware of the unlikelihood of having any success where Mother had failed, she activated a little used panel. But as Ash had said, it was something to do. She couldn't bear to sit and do nothing on the empty bridge. It gave her too much time to think. Better make work than none at all.